Hey, colleagues. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Clocked In with your girl, MB. I am so excited, guys, to be talking about this particular thing. You know why? Because I'll be honest with you, I have talked to so many people who do not understand the truth around this particular subject. And I've even had conversations with managers, and this is a true story. True story. I've had conversations with managers who did not know the truth around this particular topic. I recently had a conversation with a regional manager who manages great teams of people, like great numbers of people, and who did not know the laws and the truth around this particular subject. I have talked to an individual who is a legal professional, very excellent legal professional, who did not know the truth and the laws around this particular subject, okay, to my surprise. And I've even talked to be honest, I've talked to multiple business owners who have employees working for them who did not know the legal facts around this particular subject. And I was really shocked, okay, because it's not a shock of like, oh, how dare you not know this? It was more from a shock of like, wow, so if they don't know, then how much more should I make sure that my colleagues understand this? So thank you guys so much again, colleagues, for joining me for this episode. And this is a topic that a lot of people, like I said, are just not very, educated on and knowledgeable about. Have you ever been in a situation at work or maybe with one of your colleagues where you really, really wanted to, find out, how much are other people in the same position as me getting paid, and you didn't really know how to go about it? And the reason you didn't know how to go about it is because you were afraid that if you mention it or if you ask someone how much they get paid, or if the conversation were to come up and you entertained it, that you could be fired for it. Maybe you even thought that it was illegal. You'd be surprised how many people I've taught, very intelligent people, which is what really helped me to know that this is something that I needed to discuss here, because I've talked to, like I said, some very intelligent people who lately, very successful people, very smart people who literally said to me, "Oh, no, you can't talk about your pay. That's illegal." And so it really let me know, like I said, what do I want? What do we always have to say over here? We want to know what to know, guys. We have to know what to know. That's how we stay empowered. Knowledge is power. And knowing your rights, even though we're in a world where, hey, these things are kind of becoming touch and go, right? But this is really very important for you to understand. So I'll tell you a little story, even though I can't say names and I can't give away anything that a reasonable person could use to figure out who I'm referring to. I had an incident with someone of a great position of power. And in that conversation I had with them, I stated to them that I was aware that there was another employee within the organization who was making a significant amount more than I was. I'm a hard worker. I believe in being excellent. I believe in going over and beyond. I'm also an author, and am even working on a book that is titled Beyond the Clock, because I believe in, like I said, going over and beyond when you are really, working for an organization. So considering the hard work that I put in, in whatever position I hold, whatever seat I sit in an organization, I wanted to understand, again, what would help me to be qualified, which I knew the answer. The answer was I was already qualified. But what would help me be qualified to be receiving the same amount of pay as this other particular coworker or employee? Now, all that being said, where that conversation went left, as we like to say in this culture and society, or where it went in a very unfortunate direction, was the response I had, which was, "You're not supposed to talk about your pay. Matter of fact, nobody's supposed to talk about their pay." Well, to that person's surprise, my response was, "That statement has been illegal since 1935. Can you imagine not only the amount of surprise that this person had when I was able to tell them that, okay, by date, understanding that since 1935 is when this law was brought, was enacted. And, it literally is the purpose of the law is to protect employees from any kind of coercion, anything that interferes with them being able to obtain information that can allow them to negotiate, right, for equal pay and for equity within the workplace. So let's back up and let's talk about that part. As I just stated, first let me make it clear, as you'll see, as I'm also going to put in the description of this video, it is not illegal for you to talk about your pay. As a matter of a fact, it is actually encouraged for you to be able to openly discuss your pay in the workplace. Again, for the purpose of making sure that there, are no pay gaps between you and other employees who do the same job as you, and especially for those who meet the same qualifications as you. We can get into qualifications in a different video, because that is something else that a lot of people aren't aware of. Some qualifications are completely, forgive my French, bogus. And in some courts and in some situations, they can even be considered to be illegal. Maybe not in and of themselves, but they can definitely be used to substantiate claims as far as discrimination, and just a whole this boatload of other things that can, that people use them for, pretextual discrimination, all kinds of other things. So that aside, we'll do that in another video. Staying focused. When it comes to talking about your pay, again, it is not only not illegal, it is actually something that the NLRB wanted to make a protected conversation in the workplace, for the sake of cutting down on inequities and for the sake of cutting down on the pay gaps between, people of protected class and those who are not of a protected class, right? And so it's not, and so long story short, you can talk about your pay. You can now, I don't encourage, condone, support, subscribe to, foolishness, right? However, it is a good thing for you to be able to, like I said, to get information so you can negotiate properly. That is the whole idea behind you being able to have open conversations with your colleagues about pay. Not that you should go around, being nosy. If you didn't watch my video on Tuesday about gossip and how you can be sued for gossiping, it depends on how that gossip plays out and the elements of it, right? You can be sued for it. So if you didn't watch my video on a Tuesday, then go watch that video so you can understand how you don't want to handle information about somebody's pay or about any other personal things somebody discloses to you. But that aside, when it comes to, again, talking about your pay, not only is it not illegal, guys, it should be it's a protected conversation, and you should use that information to negotiate your pay. This is one way to cut down, like I said, on inequities. This is one way to make sure that you're, create, help to, create an environment where there's equality, right? Where you cut down on the disparities between what you should be being paid and what you are being paid versus what somebody who's doing the same exact job is being paid. So all that to say, I just wanted to let's just kill the myth. Let's just kill all the fake news, right? Let's just kill all the stuff that people say and make up about you can't talk about your pay. When I tell you, it is so funny, the amazing and powerful people whom I've encountered in high power positions, hiring people, firing people, leading major teams, and different things, who literally, and I know these people, so I know they thought they knew what to know, but I want to make sure that you guys over here, my colleagues, know what to know. You can talk about your pay, and I'm going to take it a little bit further, because as I always say, we do what we're supposed to be doing. And in the event that somebody chooses not to reciprocate, we are prepared to handle it. Okay. So that's what I want to tell you about next. In the event that you do talk about your pay and your boss and things shift, which I can speak from experience, this happens, things shift, your boss retaliates, or you notice that certain benefits are being taken, or, anything, whatever it is. What do I always tell you guys? Document, document, document. First of all, you got a record of it. You know the date it happened. You know the time it happened. And you're able to also point out, well, at this point in the timeline is when these certain things started happening. And they were subsequent to the the conversation we had about my pay, or me being discovered, discussing my pay with one of my coworkers, right? So that's how you prove a case. You build it when nobody's paying attention, you know. And so that aside, like I said, in the event that you are retaliated against, there's any special privileges being taken, or whatever the case is, fired, that would actually be amazing. Somebody fires you for talking about your pay, and guess what? You go file a suit with the EEOC. And I'm actually preparing to do a video on that for you guys, about how simple, easy, and how simple and easy it is for you to file a case with the EEOC. And I'm not just going to tell you how to file a case with the EEOC. I'm going to tell you how to file a case with the EEOC like a boss, as they say. I want you to understand the necessary elements. I want you to understand how, like I said, you take your documentation and you present it to them in a way that makes the picture very clear, so that you can, have a better chance of them actually reviewing your case, and then moving forward with an investigation, if need be. But all that aside, I just want to, I want you guys to know the truth about this. Now, what I don't want people to do is take this information and, like I said, become unprofessional with it. Don't let it turn you into that person. You know what I mean? The person who's misbehaving, the person who's not being, not practicing, in decorum, for lack of better words, yourself. You have to handle this stuff, we always want to be reasonable. So you want to use this information, like I said, to negotiate. Well, I know that they're paying John, $75,000 a year he does the same exact job I do. I've met all the reasonable qualifications for the job. They don't, just because John has a master's degree for a position that doesn't require a master's degree, doesn't mean that John should get paid, a substantial amount more than you do. That's not how this thing works. Like I said, I want to make another video about, educational requirements and, all this other stuff that jobs do, and come up with for reasons why they pay people more or give people jobs and all these different things. Understanding this will open your eyes, like literally, it will change your whole entire life. Because this goes back to a lot of the, when it comes to the whole, job description and job requirement stuff, it comes from a people having, either being ignorant about the laws that apply, or, all the things, and a bunch of HR managers who honestly, they're not really, a lot of HR managers aren't really trained in HR. You know what I mean? They either, got promoted to the position, or, just a lot of things. And, kind of to their, credit, or to have their back, should I say, a lot of them aren't properly trained. And so they end up doing things that don't really, like I said, like I like to say, that's just not how this thing works. It's not how any of this works, right? You cannot have job requirements for a job that doesn't really require that level of education or experience to do the thing. You just cannot. You cannot do that. It doesn't make sense. And there's a reason for people not being able to just willy-nilly throw together job requirements, right? Because those are some things that were used to sort of justify discriminations, right? So that's why the laws are in place the way they are, that you have to need certain levels of education in order for a job to require it for a certain position, right? So all that aside, like I said, I'll make another video about it. I just want to cut to the chase. I want to get back to the point about your pay. You can legally talk about your pay. You can talk about it openly. And you can, but again, you can talk about it to whomever you want to, and there's nothing that somebody can do to you about it. Matter of fact, most companies should have in their handbook a section or a clause about there being protections for, any kind of coercion, or, trying to tell an employee that they cannot talk about their pay. But the interesting thing is, and I don't know why this is true, a lot of people work for companies and they have never read the handbook. I just talked to a person of management. I would never disclose who, so in case you're watching this video, I would never, ever, ever do such a thing. But I just spoke with a manager very high-powered manager the other day, and when I made certain statements about things that should be in their handbook, they knew nothing about it. You know why? Because they've never read the handbook. You'd be surprised how many not only employees have never read the handbook, but how many managers, guys, have never even read their own company's handbooks. Over here, I'm telling you guys, I encourage you guys, please read your handbook. That is literally the doctrine that your company is supposed to be hinged upon. The things they do, the decisions they make are supposed to be hinged upon in your organization. And at any point that they're not playing according to their own playbook, you can say, hey, that's not how this thing works. That's not how any of this works. You now are then empowered to know how to address it, right? You can point them at their own book, which a lot of them, I'll be honest with you, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was in there. You'd be surprised. So anyway, read your handbook, but most importantly, and I encourage you guys, go do the homework. Read the handbook and see if you find this clause that I'm referring to in there. You should find it in there about people, having the freedom and the right and the liberty and whatever other choice of words to speak freely about their pay. Okay. And again, the reason for that is so they can reasonably negotiate and make sure that they're being paid the same thing that their, colleagues are being paid who do the same job. It is very important to, as far as the same pay, equal pay, it has to be also equal work and all that good stuff. But I can do a different video about that. Thank you so much for clocking in with me today so we can talk about this very, very important subject that a lot of people, like I said, apparently did not understand. Thank you. I appreciate it. Make sure you stay aware. And like I always tell you, document everything. It makes you the most powerful person. And a lot of times it's going to make you the most powerful person in the courtroom if you ever find yourself there. I hope you have a great day. Make sure you stay ready. Make sure you stay aware and make sure you stay clocked in over here with your girl MB. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Leave a comment below and let me know. Just put it down in the comments. Did you know that it was legal for you to talk about your pay? And I'm also going to make a list in the description of the different laws that apply. Anyway, guys, see you in the next episode. Make sure you be clocked in next time. Have a great day.